main speaker, Gary.
So, is that my walk-up song? Gary Alcoholic. Happy birthday to all the birthday people. There he is. Liz, good job. That's uncomfortable as all hell. Thanks for doing it. I have no idea what I'm going to talk to you guys about. I thought there was like more stuff that was going to happen. Let's see, my sobriety date's May 1st, 2003. Sponsor is Paul C. I don't call him enough, hardly ever, and it's not going well. And my original sponsor was Stan A. My home group's the Key Group, and I'm at that meeting every week. Tom's sitting there. Last night I was at the Way of Life meeting, and I secretaried that coming out of COVID. And there's a bunch of people here that were there last night, and I'm very grateful that you would show up. And I can make no promises. This shit could go sideways in a second. Can you cuss up here? Fucking A, here we go. All right. But last night I was at the the Way of Life meeting, and a friend of mine was pitching, and man, he spent a while talking about dollhouses and coming out of the closet and shit, which is great. But I was thinking, like, boy, I couldn't talk about that. And like, I wet the bed till I was 13, and I'm not going to talk about that shit here. They used to put, they'd wire my bed. My dad got out of prison when I was 5 years old, and all of a sudden I start wetting the bed, and like up until the point where I was 13 years old. But like talking about that in an AA meeting, that's fucked up. And it's not why I drank, that's not. I was restless, irritable, and discontent way before I ever heard those words. I grew up I was in Northeast Los Angeles, and I grew up in Northeast LA in a community called El Sereno, and good parents, I used to always say that, like I had good parents. My dad beat me up every now and then. I grew up Catholic. I'm not like a recovering Catholic. It was good. I was the sheep in the Christmas play up at the church, and then later I wound up being the shepherd, and I wasn't an altar boy or anything like that, but I went to CCD all the time, went to church all the time, and wasn't gonna drink. Then they didn't drink at my house. I'm Mexican, and so I had a lot of cousins and uncles and aunts and just a lot of family, and whenever you'd go hang out there, people were always drinking, but my family wasn't drinking. And I don't want to get stuck on this story, because here's what winds up happening. I wasn't supposed to get loaded. And there was a lot of, I'm supposed to be a good kid, I'm supposed to get good grades, I'm a honor student at school. I was like, my sister was, so they just kind of grandfathered me in to follow my sister. So I worked real hard to get good grades and things like that, and it was real important. And I did that through junior high, and then I got into high school, and my sister's dating like the captain of the football team kind of guy, and these are the umpires in my neighborhood, and I play sports in my neighborhood. I'm playing baseball, football, basketball, and these are the umpires and the referees. And so they were like the authority, and they're all seniors in high school or just graduated high school. And the next thing, I went to the Colorado River with them, and they offered me a beer, and they offered me a joint, and more than the alcohol or the weed, it was like I had arrived, and I was a part of these guys. I was a part of the older guys, and then they took me under their wing, taught me how to drink, taught me how to smoke weed, taught me how not to fall asleep or to act like a dick when you're loaded. And that was like super important that you had to maintain. You had to take care of yourself. You couldn't act like an idiot or we're not giving you any more kind of thing. So I wind up, weed becomes my identity, and I get taken out of high school twice in handcuffs. I go from being an honor student to barely getting out of high school. My dad had to pick me up more than once at the police station, and it was always with that disappointed look, and my mom's disappointed look. I'm sorry, what did I do?
It's just a little.
All right, sorry, man. I'm gonna talk louder. Now it's like echoing. Anyway, I had taken the ASVAB test when I was in high school, and everything else kind of petered out, and I wasn't like going anywhere going out of high school. And I wind up joining the Air Force. I scored high enough to join the Air Force, and I go off to basic training. And I had really worked hard to be who I was in my neighborhood in Northeast Los Angeles, from being a honky and a white boy and being picked on a lot to I'm Gary fucking Irwin and nobody fucks with me. And I have a crew of friends around me, and I have a bunch of guys that I run with. And it was like I thought I was somebody in that crowd. And then you get plucked from there and you get put in the Air Force, and hey, you're nobody, man. You're head shaved and you're wearing green. Everybody looks the same. And I immediately, when I got, as soon as I could, I started drinking, and you can drink in the service. You know, I wasn't supposed to be smoking weed. I wind up getting kicked out of the service. I have a strong sense of entitlement. I believe everybody owes me. I'll give you a hard day's work, and then you owe me. And I should be able to do whatever I want. So long as I'm able to do the job, you really shouldn't question me. And gosh, that's a difficult one, man, because sometimes I feel like that today. Like, I'm driving fine. Why are you pulling me over? I know it's 90, but I'm not harassing anyone. Yeah, so I got kicked out. And when you feel like the world owes you something and you get back to Los Angeles, they take you to Wayside. So I immediately started getting arrested. And just over and over and over again, over the next, I don't know, like 5 years, I spent about 2.5 to 3 of them going in and out of LA County. Scared to death. When I first got there, I was, yeah, I'll tell you what, like because I don't even want to talk about what happens to your bowels when you get really scared, because you all know. And I was so scared when I went in there, like shaky scared. And my mom would come and visit me. And at one point, I had to turn myself in, and my mom dropped me off at jail. And this woman, she's like on the Altar and Rosary Society. The woman's like a saint. And I, you know, tough guy that I am, can you give me a ride down to LA County and drop me off there? It's not a nice neighborhood at LA County. Yeah. I don't know, alcohol allowed me to compromise everything that was good to me, like everything. Everything that I thought was true and honest and right, and had no right from wrong, you know, and I would just turn it right over, man, to be able to do what I wanted to do and get loaded the way I want to get loaded. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And whoever gets in the way, I'm just going to figure out a way around you. And so they put guys like that in jail, man. That's what they do. And they send guys like that to prison. Luckily, I never had to go to prison. I wind up coming up to Santa Barbara. I don't know. Followed my brother, Tracy, up to Santa Barbara. And he was in Newhouse 1. I was living in my parents had kicked me out. I like to smoke PCP. It's like the fastest way to get out of yourself. And then I was a bouncer in a nightclub, so you smoke that during the day, and when you get your motor reflexes back, you can bounce through, you can throw everybody out. Like you can do whatever you want for the rest of the night. And I would love that shit, but my parents didn't like it at all. And tough guy that I am, I'm living with my mom and dad, and I can't keep a job. You know the 20 questions where it says, like, have you ever lost a job? And I didn't think that when I got here, and I think it was in '82, I thought that I had never lost a job from drinking. And where I would lose the job is that I'd be drinking, I'd get a drunk driving, they'd take me to jail, and they don't hold the job for 90 days, 6 months. They don't, it's like you don't have a job when you get back. So I lost, I don't know, 10, 15 jobs around shit like that. And when my brother was up here, my dad brought me up here. I was living at a house for people who had gotten evicted. And so we were kind of squatting there, and there's no gas or electricity. And we're smoking rocks and drinking, and I'm staying up all night and going to work to install business furniture, steel case furniture all day long. And then I'd come home and do it again and do it again. And so I tried to get my dad to take me up to Santa Barbara, and he did. They had a bed open at Newhouse 2. And I got to Newhouse 2, and they interviewed me, and it got to the part where he said, are you an alcoholic? And I was like, I'm an addict, for sure, but I don't know if I'm an alcoholic. Get closer? Oh, sorry, man. All right. I don't know that I'm an alcoholic. And so they thanked me, and I'm going back out to the car, and my dad's got my bags out on the street. And I start putting them back in the trunk, and he's like, what are you doing? You're staying here. I'm like, they don't have a bed. He goes, they have a bed. They have a bed. I'm like, they don't have a bed, Dad. He's like, oh, what did you do? And it was like the worst ride back home, like from Santa Barbara back to LA. It was terrible. And it was a month later, and the way God works in my life, I drank heavily for the next month. And he drove me, they had another bed. He drove me back up to Santa Barbara, took the interview again, and they said, are you an alcoholic? I'm like, yep, 100%. Just not getting back in that car with that guy. And it was a Friday, and more than being an alcoholic and that car ride and everything, it's like I was tired, and I wanted a hug, I wanted a friend, just like stop. If everything could just stop. Like I would have welcomed jail at that point. It was just too much. And they said there was a dance that night, you could go to the dance at the Alano Club. I'm like, no, I'm staying right here. I wound up meeting this guy, Eugene. He's a midget. We were in a dorm, and I'm like putting my bags away, and like something hits next to me, and I'm looking around like, what the hell is that? And I keep going, and something else hits, and they're little Skittles. So I turn around, and there's one dude in there over on his bunk, and it's a little dude. He's like, he's bigger than that. But he did it again, and I said, hey, are you throwing things? He's like, I'm not throwing anything. He's like reading the book. And I turn around, and I'm like, in my head, I'm going through, do you fuck up the midget? Because I can't win here. Because if I win, you've beat up a midget. And if I lose, I got beat up by a midget. And Eugene, we wound up going to meetings at the Alano Club all the time. Anyway, during that time, I wind up getting kicked out of Newhouse, stayed out too late, wasn't loaded or anything like that. I met a girl, stayed at her house, wind up moving in together. We wound up fighting like all the time. Like people who are new in the program do when you haven't had shit figured out and you don't know what you're doing, and I don't know how to live right, and then for the first time in my life, I'm starting to feel my feelings, and I had no business being in a relationship, and we break up, and then she calls to tell me she's pregnant, and so we got married, and I think I'm doing the right thing. And I tried for years, a few years. We were in individual counseling, couples counseling, family counseling, child counseling. We were all in counseling, and it didn't really work out. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why it didn't work out, but anyway, I wind up, I had a back injury, and I got prescribed Vicodin and Soma. And the doctor was like, the Soma is non-addictive. When you take five at a time of muscle relaxants, that shit's real addictive. And it's, I don't know, it was like I was drunk. And for 6 months, I was taking those pills. And when my daughter was born, I was taking those pills. And as present as I was, my wife went through 44 hours of labor followed by a C-section. So it was horrific. And I was on Vicodin a lot during that time. And I don't, that's one of the amends that I've had to make. Even though I was there, I wasn't there. And anyway, I have a beautiful daughter. A lot of you know my daughter, Ashley. It's probably a few years later, my dad was dying. And yeah, right on. Is that for me? So anyway, look, my dad was dying, and I wasn't really working a good program. And I wind up right about that time starting to smoke weed again. And oh gosh, so right around the time my daughter was born, I had started taking pills for about 6 months. So I went out, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, had never really told anybody I was doing any pills when going to meetings loaded and stuff. I took a 4-year cake loaded, had Dave Vardo give me a cake, and had to go. I made amends to him later. He was like, I don't care, how are you? And then 3 years later, my dad's dying, and I start drinking and smoking weed again. And at that time, if you would have told me that childbirth was too much for me, that life on life's terms, while not working a program, was too much for me to take, I would have argued with you, and I would have explained how I have a back injury, and I'm about to have surgery. I'm in pain all the time. I can literally manufacture pain during the day while I don't take anything, and I'll save it up, all my pain, till nighttime, and then I'll take 5, and if it doesn't hit me then, I'll take 5 more, and then I'll just tough it out tomorrow when I'm actually in pain so that I can get loaded tomorrow night. And that's how I take pills as prescribed. But I would have argued that I didn't get loaded behind that. It wasn't like I couldn't handle my kid being born. And I would have argued that my dad wasn't the reason that I got loaded. Easily would have argued that. And the truth of the matter is, that's the closest person to me that had died at that point, and I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to walk through that. I don't know about the 7 stages of death, or the 5 stages, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not in with the sponsor who's directing me how to do it, and not because there wasn't a sponsor there, it's because I don't talk to him. Anyway, I went out for 7 years after that, and had a blast for a few years. I don't think I ever controlled and enjoyed my drinking. And when I was controlling it, I'm picking up quarter pounds in Los Angeles. I'm bringing them back to Santa Barbara. I'm supervising shipping, receiving, production control, stockroom type stuff. And I got 2 of the people dealing for me. And that's me controlling and enjoying my alcohol use and drug use. Yeah, it was a fucking mess. Okay, so I wound up getting arrested twice in 2 drunk drivings in 9 months. And I go through the whole Zona Seca thing, and just to speed it up here, yeah, I started trying to get sober after it was the Was it the second drunk driving? It wasn't the second drunk driving. It was after the first one. I started trying to get sober, and I was going to this Christ the King church was across the street from where I lived. And I'd go over there, and there was Big Tom N. Oh, it was good. I knew so many people, and I'm showing up, and I want to stay, but I can't, and I can't, and I've lost my vehicle. I've lost my license. I knew where my vehicle was. It was in the driveway, but I couldn't drive it. And I got my daughter every few days. And so here's the end for me. I'm trying to go to AA. I'm measuring out my alcohol by buying a half a pint after work so that I would just get the half a pint. But then I'd wind up needing more, so I'd pedal my bike back to the store and I'd get a pint. And my daughter's an Alateen, and my wife is going to Al-Anon, and pretty sure she was my ex-wife at that point. And I just can't get it together, man. And as I'm walking out of the door in the morning, it feels, I have this sense of impending doom, and it really feels like my luck has totally run out. And I feel like something bad's gonna happen. I just don't know what it is. And I can't, I can't keep it together. And I have a job. I was doing production control at the time for a sonar company. I still work there. I don't know how, but they kept me through that year. I have, 21 years, and I've been there for 22 years. So that last year before I drank, I was smoking crack in the bathroom upstairs and standing up and blowing it through the vent, and the president of the company came in the bathroom, and I'm just down like real quick. And you know how we do it, right? We get super quiet. Like for 20 minutes, I'm in the bathroom like I wouldn't move. It was just terrible. Yeah, I'll tell you, it wasn't funny then, man. That shit wasn't funny then. And I couldn't stop. I had people delivering me shit out on Ward Drive. I'd have a guy come up and drop stuff off. And anyway, I wound up getting my last drunk driving. Got in an altercation with the police officer. Yeah, we won't get into that story. Anyway, I got home. They took me to the sobering center, and I got home from that. I had to take a cab home. I had just gotten I had to move my ex-wife in with me because I couldn't afford to pay her anymore. And so she was living with, I had a roommate. She was living there with my daughter. My daughter she waited till like halftime of a Monday night football game during a commercial to come out and tell me, "Daddy, I don't like it when you drink." And so I sat up and I was like, "Oh, that's good. Thank you for telling me." And then I tried to break down the little 10-year-old and like, where is it? Like, is it when I'm drunk or when I'm drinking? Because there is a difference. And she's like, "I just don't like it when you drink." And she took off, and I'm like, "Hey, fucking mom put you up to that shit." And it was probably another 30 days and I was sober. And so I got home from the sobering center that night. I got into my room. I dropped down on my knees and I asked God, I can't do it. I can't not drink, and I can't drink, and I can't stop, and I don't know what to do. And I with my hands up to heaven, and I haven't drank since then, man. So it's been a little while. It's been a little while, and oh man, I started doing what you're supposed to do when you want to get sober. I started following directions. I started doing what I was told, even when I don't want to do it. I started doing what my sponsor said. I calibrated my sponsor and I. So by calling every day and asking stupid questions like, "My daughter is sick today." He didn't have a child at that time. "My daughter is sick. I have time off." It would be Nancy's day to watch her, but she doesn't have any time off. What do you think I should do? Now me, sober-minded, I should watch that child. It's just easier for me to do it. And he says, "Well, you should just stay home, Gary." I'm like, right on. And we agreed on that one. And so things that I knew I would ask him anyway, and he'd come back to me and he'd give me the common sense answer over and over and over again. So when they impounded my truck, because I was driving it without a license, and I'm driving my kid around in the car, I was delivering chairs to a meeting, and they had the audacity to pull me over and ask me, what the hell are you doing? But they impounded my truck, and when I went to get it out, they said, you have to call the sheriff's department. I called the sheriff's. They said, you have to call the DA. So I called the DA, and the DA said, Mr. Irwin, you're a hazard to the roads. We're not giving you that truck back. And I was beside myself and just so like hopping mad, like ears red and ringing mad. And I went out and got on the phone with my sponsor, and I don't know what to do. That dude talked to me for like an hour of just some bullshit. I don't even know what he was, and you know my sponsor, Stan, he would just talk about things like he'd start here, and he'd start talking about nothing that had anything to do with my problem. And he'd keep going around and around, and it's like, God, just please get to the fucking point. And it'd come around like this, and then about 45 minutes in, it's like, hey, that's my problem. Here we go. And he'd give me the answer. And by the time he was done, he had talked me off the edge. And when I didn't know what to do, he did. And a lot of it was, don't do anything. Go to a meeting, give me a call, talk to a newcomer, get a commitment. Do all of the things that we're asking you to do around here. All the suggestions, just start doing those things. And then I have a shot at staying sober today. Gosh, what do I want to talk to you guys about? So my mom got Alzheimer's. I was like 6 years sober. I started driving back and forth. She was living in Los Angeles, so I started driving back to LA, and me, my sister, and my brother are working that out, and we're taking turns seeing my mom or taking care of my mom. And Alcoholics Anonymous and having a commitment and showing up even when you don't want to show up taught me how to show up for my mother. And that meant driving down to LA like regularly. And after 6 years, she gracefully walked out of here and gave her children enough time to process that. So by the time she died, I wasn't in pieces. And I used to come back up here to Santa Barbara and Carpenter Rio. There's a church I was going to at that time, Reality Church, and I would sit there in the dark and I'd just cry. I'd get all of those feelings out that I didn't know how to do with my dad, and I would talk to my sponsor, and I would share about it at meetings. And I leaned into the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I learned how to walk through pain and how to process that kind of stuff. And that, the grieving that comes with death, that there's different stages to it, and it doesn't necessarily all come at once and all go in order. It jumps back and forth. And my sponsor had me read that, and he taught me how to walk through it. And so I learned how to do that. And at the same time, my daughter was pregnant. And she was, there's some funny stories in there, but we don't have enough time to get into them. She wanted me to be there, and I didn't want to be there. But I'm not loaded, and so I'm there, and I'm there for my kid, and so was the father, Adam, who's just a real asshole, but that's a whole nother story. So she started labor, and she's breathing heavy, and the pain is kicking in, and the nurse was walking out, and so I just kind of followed the nurse, because I'm not thinking I'm supposed to be there for the whole thing. And it's my kid, right? I mean, I don't want to see all that. So I'm going out with the nurse, and my kid yells out, "Where's my dad?" I'm like, "I'm right here." I'm like right by the door trying to get out. And I went back and I held my kid's hand, and I was there for my granddaughter's birth, 100%, not loaded, not really trying to get away, man. That was all fun and games right there. I was 100% there for my kid. And what God has given me is a capacity to sit with others that are in pain and to help them walk through what they're walking through. So my mom died 12 days after my granddaughter was born. And I'm in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am nowhere near a drink or a pill or a drug. And I am, when my dad died and when my daughter was born, I couldn't handle life on life's terms, and I couldn't walk through that. When my granddaughter was born and when my mom died, I was front and center. I was, my sister, when they put my mom on the ground, she like almost passed out. I was actually, this is like dramatic because I'm like, I caught my sister. And that's all real good stuff that Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. At 9 years sober, where we at? I still have, all right. At 9 years sober, my company got taken over. The company I'm at, I work at Sonatech. Oh yeah, and go Dodgers. Let's get that out of the way. Yeah, just had to get that on tape. I'm like 6'3", 200 and, I don't know, probably 50 pounds right now. I'm fat as all hell. And I'm loud. And I've been working at this company for a long time, and I'm in charge of a lot of people. We got bought out by an investment firm from New York. And they came in and they started getting rid of all the Indians and hiring more chiefs. And it was terrible. And they got rid of all the people around me. I was one of 7 directors, and there was only 2 of us left when it was done. And I mean, I would come out of my office like I owned that place. And I would walk around that building like that was what my job was. And I wound up coming out of my office, like looking both ways and trying to make sure I went the right way so that I wouldn't run into certain people. And I was scared to death, man, scared to death. And I wasn't really talking to anybody about it. And I was at the Key Group, and PC was sitting there, and he was sitting right next to Tommy, and I was right over on the side. And he said, if you just go through this book, the way we can take you through this book, and he's talking about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and wherever there's an action, you take an action, and wherever there's, whatever's going on in that book, we're just going to do it straight out of that book. And he goes, I guarantee you a spiritual awakening. And I'm looking around like, isn't anybody going to take him up on this? Like, I need this. At 9 years sober, my life is falling apart, and I can't, I don't know, man, I'm dry as fuck. I'm going to meetings all the time. I'm calling my sponsor. I have commitments. I'm doing the stuff I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm scared to death. I'm scared to walk into work, and I'm starting to feel that feeling of impending doom, and I don't know what to do. And here's a guy telling me, if you just go through the book, the way we can take you through the book, or that I can take you through this book, you can have a spiritual awakening. And it took me like a week, and I went up to him. I'm like, hey, can you take me through this? He's like, hell yeah. And so I went through the book with PC, and I started doing the steps with him, and I had a spiritual awakening, another one. And I take the guys through the book the same way today. That's 9 years sober, and I was teetering on the edge of going out, man. And I want to make sure I say this, because I hear people talking about, and I don't want to, I am not here to teach anybody anything. People that know me know that I'm messy. I'm not, I do not have it all together. But here's one thing I do know. Alcohol doesn't come through the front door. It doesn't say, Gary, would you like a drink? Alcohol comes through the side door. It comes through the fucking window, and I don't have any control over that. Actually, that's not true. The control that I have today is going to meetings, working the steps, working with another alcoholic, calling my sponsor, which I need to do. Like I have a fiance, and she has 2 kids, a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old, and that shit drives me crazy sometimes. And I love this person, that you're the closest person to me and you can do the most damage, so I'm most afraid of you. And I don't want to be an asshole, but I'm trying to protect myself. And while I'm trying to protect yourself, you're trying to protect yourself. And so we're just doing this thing, and it's hard, and relationships are hard. And so we both have sponsors, and we both are in counseling. And I love her. And I think that, love brings to the surface everything unlike itself to be healed. And so the deeper I fall in love, the more shit, I'm safe enough for more shit to come up. And then I have to deal with that shit. Uncover, discover, discard. And I have to walk this path with a higher power. I don't know what else to talk to you guys about. Oh, there was so much when I was coming in here. My daughter right now. So she's trying to process all the stuff that happened to her growing up and having parents split up and having being a mother at like 16, 17 years old. And being in Alcoholics Anonymous and knowing that, and I'm sure you all know this, there's predators in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not Well People's Anonymous, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. There's some fucking assholes in here. And some of them prey on people. And so we all have to be careful. And I don't, and my daughter was one of them. And I wish I could do something about it, but I can't. And she gets to process all this stuff, and I get to be available. And recently, I'm told I'm one of the people, just like her mother, that she's processing. And the relationship that we've had, she has made me the authority figure in her life, like I was. And now she's having to walk through that. And so I have to give that kid room. She's chosen to not be in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous because it's frightening to her. I hate that. I hate that. This thing saves my life, and it needs to be available for everybody. God, everybody should be able to walk in here and be safe. And she doesn't feel that way. But I have to give her her space. And so learning how to do that, it requires a really big higher power. And I'm having to talk to my ex-wife again. And she's telling me, hey, you know what? You have 21 years sober and you never made amends to me. And I was like, wow. Because I was there when we did it. And I started like refreshing her memory I need her to sign some papers for me. And so I was kindly pointing out, we did this, and it was like 2 days later you called me and you told me how there was so many more things that I missed and that I needed to make amends for. And I told her that I had a script and I had to stick to it because that's what my sponsor told me to do. As hard as it was to not just acquiesce and just take all the responsibility and beat myself with it, that it's all my fault. I'll just take it all. And my sponsor was like, no, this isn't yours, that's yours, but this isn't. And so I did that. And a week later, she called back and told me that she had to make amends for trying to tell me how to run my program. And so we did that again the other day. And I don't harbor any ill will for her, and I don't want to hate anybody anymore. It's not healthy, man. Anyway, that's my time. I really appreciate getting to talk to y'all. Hopefully we all got something out of it. Thank you very much.